Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining our conference today. We've got a panel of experts. We do have one that's having a slight bit of technical problems. She'll be joining us as soon as possible. One of the things we'd like to do is understand a little bit about our audience. And if you will look at the upper right corner of your screen, we're about to publish a poll. In this poll, we're going to have two of them. The first one will be geared at understanding how big your organization is. And if you'll just click and give us the answer, we'll actually see your answers in real time. It should be on the right-hand side of the screen. If you don't see it, there's a little arrow up at the top that says hide and open sidebar. Great. There's new stuff coming in. That's fantastic. So we'll have that open for another couple of minutes. And we want to do that. And then we're also going to put up a second poll, which is just a little more specific, which basically is if you have not applied yet, we're trying to understand why. Is it because you don't understand the process or a number of other reasons? We want to make very sure that our panel can speak directly to your issues and your questions today. And so that will help us a great deal if you'll manage to do that. In addition to that, you'll see an opportunity to ask questions in the same sidebar. And so if you have a question, you can type it in and we will do our best to get it answered. If we do not get their questions answered during the course of the webinar, we will track those and we will do our best to get them all answered and publish them online. So thank you very much for that. And if you'll give us just a second, we'll have our panel start. Juan, you and Greg and Martin want to kick it off at this point?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I see quite a few number of people joining this very important webinar where we're trying to give you as much information as we can. And most important, I think the three of us are really looking forward to answering any questions about any of the programs that you guys are trying to apply for. Because I think most of you probably are fully aware of what's going on. But I think our main goal today is clarify any doubts, any questions, answer them. And Martin from the SBA will be able to give you a very accurate information on the status and things like that. So my name is Juan Gonzalez. I'm the president of Key Bank in Central Indiana. Very honored to be here and look forward to the question and answer section. And let me pass it to Martin from the SBA for a self-introduction, and then we'll do Greg from Ice Miller.
Hello, everyone. This is Martin Anderson. I am the Deputy District Director for the Indiana Small Business Administration Office. We handle all 92 counties for the state of Indiana. And what I'd like to sort of tell people first, this is a general background. One is the best place to get the most current, up-to-date information on everything SBA is doing is go to www.sba.gov/coronavirus. It has the most current, up-to-date info on any loan program we have. You can also get links to our loan partners there that can help you possibly prepare before you talk to your bank. You put in your zip code and it tells you what the locations are of our resource partners here in Indiana. We have the Indiana Small Business Development Center Network, the SCORE Network, and 2 women's business centers, all who do free business counseling and training are available to assist you. They're all up and running. We're all doing this virtually. Obviously, we've learned a lot of new ways to do business. Sorry if my voice is changing. I'm either going through puberty again or I've been talking so much lately that I think my voice is going away. So, as we go through this, the main thing I want to get out to folks too is, there are a lot of fraud issues out there too. So understand SBA does not reach out to you directly to make a loan application. We may reach out to you after you've made application, But if anybody sends you an email soliciting you to apply for a loan online, please be extremely cautious about that. I would recommend you just, if you're interested in the programs afterwards, you go to our website and we've got some great information there about how to apply for any programs we have available, whether it be the EIDL loan, which is directly through SBA, or the PPP loan, which is done in partnership with our lending partners throughout the state of Indiana. So I guess that's sort of my general outline. I just wanted to get a couple things out there first before we start taking questions. And if Greg wanted to take over and give any comments he's got.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. So my name's Greg Grosby. I'm a partner with the law firm Ice Miller. I've been a lending and real estate partner for attorney for over 25 years. Both at Ice Miller and at a few other stops before that. I have done Section 7A lending in the past. 7A is the program that the Paycheck Protection Program is piggybacking on. And I will say they are different animals. And so if you're aware of 7A lending, there are a lot of things that are different about this program. So it's an exciting program. The EIDL is a very important program too. And maybe what I will do here is just briefly go through those two programs, just let you know just a little bit about them on the baseline in case there are people that don't already know.
Yeah, Greg, that would be great. Would you start with the EIDL one first?
Sure,
because I
sure.
think that was the first one that went out, and then we can talk about the payroll protection plan afterward.
That's great. That's great. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or EIDL, EIDL is what everyone's calling it, is a program that it's been existing for some time. The disaster loan programs for the SBA have existed for some time, but there was a special reauthorization and direction of people to that program in March of this year. Essentially, that program will provide up to $2 million per borrower in working capital loans for small businesses. Small businesses, I think most people on the line won't have an issue with. It looks like on our poll that 76% of us on the line are in organizations that have less than 10 employees.
And Greg, just so I can throw in there on that too, you'll notice on some of the loan programs, they're specific. And when you're applying for the EIDL, there's some specific questions that ask you, and it asks you what type of business you are. So typically for these programs, it's you're right, it is a little different. We go by a normal 7A, we go by what's known as the size standards. For this, basically, they're doing anything that's 500 employees or less. Not-for-profits are also eligible. And you will basically say what type of company you are when you go into the SBA.gov coronavirus website, pick up the EIDL loan application, and as you go through that, this is actually the third rendition of the EIDL program application. It's a lot more streamlined. It is a lot simpler to do. It's pretty intuitive and sort of just walks you through the screens, but it will actually show you what type of businesses are actually eligible.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Martin. And in fact, we might have, I've got a few questions that I'd like to ask you about that program that I think
Sure.
you're interested in. So just as a recap, the interest rate under this program is 3.75% with 2.75% interest rate for nonprofits. There are collateral requirements for loans over $25,000, and
anything $25,000 and below is a unsecured note. Anything $25,000 and above, we would take collateral. We take what's available, but we will not decline based upon a lack of collateral either.
Excuse me, I'd like to just interrupt 1 second and introduce Deborah Oates. Deborah has joined us now, and we've resolved the technical issues. So, Deborah, at this point, if you want to assume your role as moderator, we'd appreciate that.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, David.
Okay, everybody can hear me. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And to Greg, Juan, to John, and to Marty, thank you so much for joining the panel. We really appreciate your being with us today, and would also just want to say thank you for our audience who have joined us. My name is Deborah Oates, and I'm with Nubian Construction Group. Been in business over 25 years, and so we start off a trucking company. We do construction management, program management, as well as diversity programs. So again, everyone, thank you. And thank you for bearing with me in this day of technology. Thank you so much. So I've already heard, and I want to make sure that I don't want to repeat anything that you have already said. Marty, I heard you talking, and Juan as well, and Greg. So what I'd like to do is, I know we did the poll of exactly how many firms have already connected, and whether or not you've connected with your bank, and if you haven't, why not? So what I'd like to do at this point is just to say that we want to make this as practical as we can. So let me just start by saying, Greg, and if you've already answered this question, I missed it, then we may want to just
Sure.
move on to the next question. But there are two significant programs that are available for small business owners and business owners, smaller business owners under 500 employees. And so it is the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. So can you explain each program and its benefits, and also consider our audience that have under 50 employees, those micro businesses, and solo entrepreneurs as well.
Great. So we were just going through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program when you came in, so you've got great timing. We've given some specifics about the program. An additional one I wanted to get out there is that there are personal guarantee requirements, but only for loans in excess of $200,000. or under that amount, there's no personal guarantee that's required. And then I had some questions, given that we've got an expert here, I wanted to ask Martin about. So there are timing is one, and then the grants are a different one. So first off, with timing, Martin, if I apply to the program, how soon can I expect to see a check?
That's the hard question on this, but just to let you know, we are processing loans on a first come, first served basis, and this is a nationwide program. The word we're getting as far as actual approval time for the disaster loan application, it could take up to 21 days for an approval on the loan. There is what a lot of people are calling a grant. We call it the advanced program, up to $10,000. Now that program, as they're saying, is within days that you should get information back on that. We know some of those are starting to go forward already. I don't have any specific numbers, but I'm aware that some money is going out. So we always tell people, don't hesitate. Get your application in.
Hey,
One of the things nice about the EIDL program is once they actually make a loan decision, you are under no obligation to accept the offer of the loan. So you can always say, no, I've found a better way. I found something that's more attractive for my business, et cetera, et cetera. And the up to $10,000 advance, is forgivable, and you get that regardless. So I would tell people, and this is what we're telling them, get onto the website, apply if you feel you qualify and it can be of assistance to you, and get yourself in the queue.
Hey, Marty and Greg, just to reinforce on that one, this is one from KeyBank. That program is is directly managed by the SBA. It's not
Correct.
owned by the banks. So I know there was.
That is there's one portal for that application, and that is off sba.gov/coronavirus. You click on the debt relief option, or not the debt relief, on the funding options, and it will take you to that program. You click that button and you can start the application right there.
Yeah, that's great. Martin, as you said, that an interesting feature of that program is the advance. So it's up to $10,000. It's supposed to be paid within days after the application is provided, and that advance. You get to keep that regardless of whether you actually receive an EIDL loan.
Yes, correct.
One question that I've had people ask: what if I applied for an EIDL loan prior to the time that I received information that the advance was available? Am I able to go back at this point and ask for the advance? Too late.
Yes, you are. And this is some confusion on our part. This new application is actually the third rendition of the application process. Originally, we went into our normal disaster loan application system, and quite honestly, this is unprecedented. You know, we've had localized disasters SBAs deal with, even with the hurricanes and multiple hurricanes, but we've never had a all 50 state disaster declaration like this with that kind of influx. So what we had to do was it overwhelmed the system. So what happened was they put up a temporary system where you could download the paperwork and then upload it again. And then we had some folks come on board who designed the new portal. So anybody who basically applied prior to March 30th, they should have received an email saying, please go back into the new portal, reapply, and click that you want the advance. It doesn't change your place in line, but what it does, it restarts the process on the front. Now, if you don't do that, they are still reaching out to you to go ahead and process your loan. At that time, they will inquire about the advance.
That's great. So that's the EIDL program. The other program that Deborah mentioned was the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is another program of the SBA. It is the bones of it are based off of the SBA's existing 7A lending program, but it's a much more streamlined version, and there are a lot of great features to it. The eligibility requirements are minimal. First, you have to have a business that was operating on February 15th of 2020, and effectively prior to that time, you had to have employees. Otherwise, there's no way to calculate a loan amount for you. Also, you have to be a small business, which for most people on this call won't be an issue. The limit is 500 employees, or there are two other tests. You can meet the NAICS size standard if for your industry under that the NAICS industry codes, your industry has a limit that's greater than 500. Another way to do it is that there is an alternative size standard that was actually introduced during the economic downturn back in 2010. Essentially, you have to have both less than 15 million of net tangible. Is it net tangible assets, Martin? Is that the right term?
Yes.
And then less than 5 million of net income averaged over the prior 2 years after payment of federal income tax, but without reference to any carryovers. But for most people on this call, I just wanted to mention those in case it applied to anyone. But for most people under this call, you'll be safely under 500 employees, and you'll just satisfy the standards.
If there's any question on whether or not you're eligible on the size standard, I mean, we can't necessarily give you an absolute answer at the district level, but if you want to send an email to our general email address is what we're using for questions at indiana@sba.gov. I mean, if you tell us your specific situation, we can refer you usually to the size standard that maybe applies to you. We can't make an absolute determination because we're relying on what you tell us. Um, but we can generally tell you if maybe we feel you're eligible. And quite honestly, that eligibility determination, you're going to give that information to your lender that you're working with on this program, and they also are going to verify that.
That's great. Loan amounts for this program are the lesser of $10 million or 2.5 months of payroll costs. So that's essentially, it's payroll cost is more than just wages or salary. It includes things like tips. It includes benefits, so group health benefits, retirement benefits, and state and local, essentially payroll taxes.
Correct. It's your, there's a lot of things that go into the calculation of your wage or your payroll. Basically, if you've got good payroll records, no matter what type of business you're in, you're going to be supplying that to, you're going to be working with your lender again to go through that. And those are going to be the same records if later on down the line, you actually are going to do the forgiveness, want to forgive part of this loan. That's the other records you're going to need. So we're telling people, right now, the most important thing you do is have accurate records. Make sure you maintain accurate records. That way, you've got good information as this program progresses.
Right. Before I flip this back to Deborah, I just want to mention that this is a 2-year loan program, interest rate of 1%. There is a deferral of interest under the program, so you don't make any interest or principal payments for at least 6 months or up to 12 months. And the reason for that is there's a forgiveness feature for this program. If you use the loan funds for permitted uses during the first 8 weeks after you receive your funding, then you can have forgiveness of up to 100%. And we can talk in a little bit about what might reduce that forgiveness. But it's a great program and designed so that if you're employing people and bringing them back at close to their historic salary, that you should be able to get 100% forgiveness for the loan, or at least close to it.
So,
Deb, do you want to?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. I just want to take a look just a minute. There are a few questions out here that I do want to ask with regard to what we call the advance and that $10,000. So I want to ask one of the questions at this time that more often, and one of the questions is, I run my home, he and his wife, and employee. So the question is, so can you explain, do they qualify? So can you explain that, please? And I'll direct that to you, Juan.
Thank you, David. Sorry, I'm trying to get off mute. So my apologies. On that one, I will defer to Mari only because the disaster loan is administered by them directly, not by the banks. So Mari, could you comment on that?
Sure. Basically, any company, sole proprietor, or any LLC, S Corp, C Corp, sole proprietor is still eligible for the economic injury disaster loan.
Okay, thank you.
Now, it may affect the loan advance because they're going to look at everybody's individual situation on the advance. But no, it doesn't matter. Sole proprietors are eligible for the program also.
Okay, so no matter how small the business is, as long as it meets the criteria.
As long as it meets the standard.
The standard. Thank you. So, and I don't know if we have discussed this. I may have not been able to be on at the time, but Juan, with regard to applying at the bank, can one apply at any bank? And can you explain that process on accepting those applications, perhaps with current customers that a banker might have?
So, David, you're talking now about what is P,
Yes.
the Paycheck Protection Plan, which is the one that has been on the news a lot since last Friday. So yeah, you have to go through a bank to apply for that loan, if you want to call it a loan, because as Greg mentioned earlier, it will be forgivable if you do it within the guidelines that were set by the SBA. So every institution, for the most part, every institution is participating in the program. I can tell you on eBank's perspective, uh, we have been working on it 24/7 since Friday. We did create our own app internally and very user friendly and so on. But the most important part was to be able to get our clients taken care of first. So, and I think most institutions have done that, taking care of their clients first, making sure that they're getting the access to the funds that they need. And again, as Mari say, we are not telling them what the loan amount has to be. They have to calculate it themselves. We are double checking the numbers because people have to provide certain documents to verify those numbers. Is heavily payroll driven, so that's the goal of this, to maintain people working for 8 more weeks. That's the intent of the program. And so far, we have been able to take a tremendous amount of applications and working back end on the funding piece, which is where some of the backlog we're having, some of the banks are having, as the volume has been so high to go into the SBA system to pull the different SBA numbers that we need to pull before we can fund the loans. Uh, but yeah, David, to answer your question, I know it's a long answer, but everyone that is listening, hopefully your own bank talked to you about it and did an application for you. If you have not heard from your own bank, then I think that's one of the questions that we're going to discuss later today. So I'll stop there, David.
Okay.
I can. This is Marty. I can go ahead and sort of address that part of it. We, as a general rule, do refer people to their bank of account. Obviously, being small business owners, we highly advise that you have a bank of record, a bank of account. It's one of the first things we talk about. If by chance that is an issue, if you go to the I sound like a broken record again, sba.gov/coronavirus website, there's a blip on there that says find lenders, which basically you put in your zip code. It brings up a list of eligible participants in your area. Now, it doesn't say they are necessarily doing loans or they are necessarily, we can't set bank policy as far as how they administer this program because it is done in partnership with a private lender. But it will tell you who is in your area that is eligible. Also, we have a small business development center network, which has been doing something. They have been working with their clients in their areas and they've been compiling a list of lending institutions who are actively doing PPP loans in their areas. So it gives you a couple I saw a couple things pop up on the questions too. It gives you a couple of other options if you can't find a lender.
Okay, thank you. At this time, what we want to do is just do a shift. John, we want to welcome you to the panel. John, will you provide for us your perspective on why it's important to take advantage of this opportunity and just talk a little bit about your experience for applying for the loan? Not sure. John, are you on the call? We'll skip at this point and then we'll come back to John. So what I'd like to do is, since we've got a little bit of time left, I want to start taking questions from the audience. And so Jennifer is asking, Martin, could you send out the list of small business COVID-19 resources that you are verbally sharing?
Or if you want to access that information, if you go to, the quickest way is www.sba.gov/coronavirus. There's a button there that says local assistance. You click on that and it's available to you 24/7. Otherwise, if you go to sba.gov itself, there is also a local assistance button there. And it also accesses you to a lot of different potentially helpful information there about if you need to get paperwork together, learn about other programs. Just also understand these are the two disaster funded programs we have. But if you need financing for other things, we also have our normal 7A loan programs that are available to you for other business sources or business uses. So there's a lot of information there that you can have access to 24/7.
Okay, thank you. Now, there's a question that comes up from Lana, a question about the contractors with a W-9. So the contractors that she has a question about. And we would like, Greg, would you answer that, please?
Sure, I can answer that. So if you have independent contractors, so essentially somebody that you would pay, you would provide a 1099 to, independent contractors are able to apply on their own. So they can make their own applications to the program. In fact, there's guidance that has come out that says if you are a small business and you are paying an independent contractor, that you should not include payments to the independent contractor in your application. In fact, you should only include your employees and direct the independent contractor to make its own application.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
So there's another question from Karen here, and she indicates that she was told yesterday by a bank manager that there's a new PPP program coming out. PPP program coming out tomorrow. So is that true?
What she's probably referring to is independent contractors tomorrow to start applying. So it's not new, it's just a different rollout.
Okay, thank you. And then the applies to churches.
Churches are eligible to apply to either of the programs. And if you're interested in, if anybody needs any guidelines on that, then again, broken record, see recording number 1. Go to sba.gov/coronavirus, and there is a frequently asked question and guidelines on churches and how that all works.
Yeah,
Okay.
David, let me add churches and non-for-profits. I know I saw that question coming up a lot too. So they're both eligible to apply for the PPP loan program.
Okay, so we got more questions coming in. And so one from Michael says, if you're an independent contractor and have already applied, do you have to apply again tomorrow? Marty, is so that question is
what is he actually applying for? The PPP loan?
Yeah, I think because we're on that side, I think he's applying for that PP loan.
Let me get back on that one.
Yes,
I want to check the rule and make sure.
Thank you. We do have Patricia. Would a single member LLC be considered as an independent contractor? And Greg, could you address that, please?
Sure. So there are lots of questions about how the program works with respect to independent contractors. I think, as a practitioner is helping some people out with applying for these loans, I understand the concepts much better in the case of a small business than with respect to an independent contractor. But if you have a single member LLC and you report your earnings on taxes on Schedule C. So that's how you report your earnings. You could apply as an independent contractor or self-employed individual, and tomorrow is the correct filing date. Marty, I've got a question for you on that. How does the calculation of payroll costs for an independent contractor differ from that of a small business?
Basically, what they're going to be looking at is their income that they reported based upon their 1099, et cetera. If you go to the final rule, which is also on our website, it gives an example. I believe it's on page 6 of what all counts in the documentation that's actually required. But it's basically 1099 income. And if they don't have particular records, I mean, then they're going to look back at tax returns, et cetera.
Marty, do they have to show a net amount, or is it just the gross of their 1099 income?
It's going to be the gross.
Right.
There's another question here, and it has to do with, I think we've already answered the one question about the criteria and making sure the SBA standards are met. But let's ask, Cheryl is asking this question. What are the qualifications or criteria to make sure you meet the SBA standards to qualify for the $10,000 grant? Are they as basic as having an EIN number, generating dollars, amount, and income in 2019? And so, Marty, would you answer that, please?
I think I heard your question right, but generally, if they go the EIDL application, it's the first set of questions are going to find out if basically if they're eligible. If they can click any one of those buttons, they are eligible for the EIDL program and can request up to this $10,000 advance. The information inside their application will then set the amount that the actual disaster processing center will offer them for the advance.
Okay, and from Joycelyn, it's a question that she has, and this asking, is the advance based on the number of employees? And if so, a sole proprietor with no employees would only get $1,000. Is that correct?
What I can answer on that one is they have not shared with us the formula that they're actually using at this time. So that will be something that the disaster center, we're hoping we're going to get guidance from them exactly how they're calculating that, but I can't say that for sure.
Okay, this is another question that we'd like to address, and it has to do with, let me scroll up. Just a moment, please. Let's see. Looks like we got a lot of questions coming from independent contractors, and this is from Deborah. And the question is, this is what her question said: we have no employees, but a distribution company in CBD products and hospital supplies. And so their entity is under an LLC with partners. And so she's stating that she did apply for the disaster loan with the SBA, but have not heard anything. So with regard to that disaster loan, is there a way, what is the best resource, the best contact information that can be provided? Is there a website could be directed to find out what the status of that loan might be?
Yes, there actually is. And it's actually on the EIDL website itself, underneath the SBA coronavirus site. But the best thing, there's an 800 number where they can call, or my best advice to them is to send an email to disastercustomerservice@sba.gov,
Okay.
which is also listed on the website.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question from one, this is from Michael. He's an independent contractor He's a realtor, and he also is a single member of an LLC, owner of a photography studio. So the question is, would he have to apply twice?
If, tell me the situation again. Let me listen.
He's an independent contractor.
Okay. So he's getting revenue from somebody on a 1099.
And yes, independent, a realtor, and
Okay.
also a single member of an LLC. So
And
as in a photography studio.
okay. Is he's being a single man? I would work through that eligibility with his lender, but my first thought is he would definitely want to file through his LLC. He may be able. It's really tough when they've got multiple organizations out here. There's affiliation rules and different things. I would tell him to go to his lender and make application, and then let them make the eligibility determination there. And if they need assistance, they can reach out to our LRS staff, the lender himself.
Okay.
It's really hard to do it when you've got you don't want to tell anybody they're ineligible or how to necessarily do it. You want to get them to go make application and then let us work on their particular case with all the variables that could come into play.
Hey,
Okay,
Greg,
thank you.
Greg, but he is getting income from both entities. So there is like a quote unquote paycheck on both sides on different EIN numbers. Technically, he might be able to file for both, right?
Correct. It may be that he can do that. It
Okay.
gets into the affiliation rules, and a lot of those have been suspended. So you really have to know exactly what's going on and see, supporting documentation to make those determinations.
Okay. Thank you. We have another question here from Kathy. And the question is, are they limiting the 10,000 portion of the EDL based on the number of employees you have?
Again, they have not shared with us the formula on how they are determining the advance amount. So all I can tell you is they're taking the information that you have applied, and then they are calculating that. And if once they share any calculation amounts with us, we will make sure they get up on the website.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Marty, I know it seems like we're just kind of wearing you out at this point. So
Oh, I'm getting
anytime-
used to it. I got thick skin.
Okay. Okay, so we haven't been able to connect with John Thompson yet. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and go through some of these questions, and then hopefully we'll be able to connect with him. So from Sabra, I have already applied for the SBA loan, and I have 6 independent contractor and 1 1099 employee. I filed as 7 employees. Will I have to redo the application?
And again, I'll go back. Sorry about that. My staff is on a squirrel outside. So it depends. Which loan is she actually talking about? The PPP?
Yes,
Do we
I
know?
think she is. Yeah. Well, she's saying the SBA loan, but I think she's referring to the PPP loan.
Then again, I would talk to her lender to see exactly what they put as far as what the supporting documentation she has available. And I would not reapply, but I would work with your lender to make sure they understand exactly what she's applying for and for what, and what the use of proceeds is.
Hey, David, that's actually very good advice from Mari. If we've been asked the question about readjusting the amounts, reapplying again, and we're telling clients to please do not reapply, because there is a strong chance that you reapply, your first application gets withdrawn, and you lose your place on the queue. If that makes any sense. So I think the best advice is to call the lender she's using to get that answer. But my guess is he probably doesn't want to reapply.
Yeah. Hey,
I would not recommend that. No.
hey, Juan, that's great advice, and to go along with that, what if the Key Bank has done such a great job in this program, so but there are a lot of other banks that aren't, they're not as familiar with the rules, and they don't have quite the capacity that Key Bank does. I have a number of clients that applied Friday or over the weekend and still don't have an SBA number, and the SBA number is what ensures your allocation of funds. If someone's in that situation, I've seen some of them going to other banks and applying there. Do you have a recommendation for what people should do in that situation?
Yeah, no, for sure. So in our you, Greg, that
I'm on stage.
John, hello.
John is coming on board now. They should not. They should be patient. They should call their banker.
Sure enough.
We all having the same kind of backlog issue. If that makes sense. I know we started earlier in the process, so I'm following reports all day long, and we're starting to move a lot of clients through the process, and some of them are starting to get funded in the last 24 hours all over the country for Key Bank at least. So we're starting to get very successful on getting the SBA number to us, because there was a little bit of the system was kind of crashing on the SBA side. There was a delay on Monday, Tuesday, but they have done a great job to try to revamp it and make sure they can take the volume in. So I will tell people, be patient. I know you're hearing a lot of news from other banks saying that they're funding things here and there. Many banks are on the same place. They haven't been able to fund that many loans yet. So don't feel like you're gonna lose your funding. The good news is that those of you that have applied and have gotten an application approved by your lender, you're probably in a very good place right now to for the lender to go to the next step and get the SBA number. So I wouldn't go to another bank and apply. I don't think that's helpful. Because you're taking capacity away from the other lenders that might be helping others. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and quite honestly, you might be hurting yourself, because if 2 applications come through the line for the same EIN number, say you've been approved from Bank A, and then Bank B then comes through with the same information, what's basically going to happen is both of those loans may be put on hold.
Okay.
So if you're going to apply to a different lender from one you've already done, just because you would want to withdraw the application from the first lender.
Yeah. So Greg, for example, I know the capacity issue keeps coming up, but at Key, I know we're going to start emailing our clients that have applied the status of the loan very soon. We can see it internally, but they cannot see it externally. But that way, that will give clients a little bit peace of mind, if you will, that their loan is moving through the process.
Yeah, the key is communication with your lender.
Okay, so we have a couple other questions that I think we want to try to get to these, John, before we hear from you. But there's a question about a PPP and the EDL loan. And so one question from Cecilia, she is a not-for-profit company organization with 2 employees. So what would be your recommendation?
So as I understand it, Debbie and Mari and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. She should not. She should apply for the disaster loan before she applies for the PPP, right? That's how it's written on the guidelines.
Actually, she should apply for either or both of the loans that she feels she qualifies for. You can't use the funds for like you can't use the funds from an EIDL loan with a PPP loan for the exact same purpose. So if you got an EIDL loan, use it to pay your payroll, and then also calculated that into your PPP loan, then that part of the the PPP loan that you've already paid with the EIDL proceeds would not be forgiven, and we would ask you to pay the PPP portion with the EIDL. Does that make sense?
I think that was confusing, Mari, but that might
Yeah,
be
there's too many acronyms. Basically, you can't use the money. You can't use money. This two different pots of money for the same purpose.
right. So the PPP loan, Debbie, is literally the intent is for payroll purposes to help companies maintain employees on the payroll, if you will, for 8 more weeks. That's the intent.
And you can do other uses for it, but for the forgiveness portion of the PPP loan, you have to use at least 75% of the loan proceeds for payroll and associated costs
Correct.
to have the loan forgiven. If there is a portion of the loan that is not forgiven, that then converts to a 1% loan with a 2-year payback period.
Okay, so Marty, so then you said used for payroll and associated expenses. So some of them,
Benefits,
okay,
health insurance, those type of things.
those type of fringes.
You-
Okay, thank
Debbie, in utilities and some of those too. So it's a very generous program, actually.
Okay, okay. So I want to take a look at just go back to just one other question because we're still on the PPP. So here is, so Pam has a company, it's a commission-based small business. And she wants to know how would it relate to her commission-based small business? And is it based on last year's return?
So she is actually receiving the commissions, or is she paying her employees a base pay plus commissions?
Not sure. Let's Pam, would you give us your answer, and we'll come back
If
to
it's,
that.
and I'm not going to give a general answer. If
Okay.
she's paying employees a base plus commissions, that would be an allowable cost under the program. Tips, commissions, bonuses, incentive programs, those type of things would be an allowable cost. Now, if she is receiving those, then that would go back to, she's going to have to show the revenue that, or the income that she was actually deriving. So it could be an either or.
Okay, okay. And then Vicky has a question about what documents will be requested or required by the SBA or the bank. So Juan, would you, in addition to the application, would you?
Yeah, so at least I can tell you what we're asking for, which I'm guessing most banks are doing the same, like copies of your payroll expense 941s, if you have those. If you've been in business, you have to be in business before February 15, 2020. So if you just started a business in December, we got to make sure that whatever you're asking for payroll purposes, you can prove. And we're asking companies also to give us entity documents. Now, we most banks will have those, but some of those are dated. So most banks are trying to get new ones. And those essential documents are critical because we had to make sure that we're proving the SBA that we're doing the due diligence, and that the numbers that the companies are asking for are actually quote unquote similar to what the payroll numbers look like. I know there is a 2.5 multiple on the calculations, but we need to make sure that we can sustain the value of the loan amount to the SBA, because the SBA is relying on the banks to make sure that the program is utilized the right way.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that's okay. Thank you. So it looks like we're having a lot of questions about some of the areas that would be that we could find on on the website for resources. So we want to make sure, again, if we can make sure that that's available on the website. There is another question that addresses one who, Dorshia, has a hair salon. And so she has three full-time stylists and one part-time stylist. So she's asking if they're considered employees. So even if they are paying booth rent. So Greg, would you address that? And we have about 3 more minutes before we need to wrap up, please. And we need to get John Thompson as well. So Greg, could you address that with regard to the Dorshia who has a hair salon and whether or not her the stylists who work for her are considered employees?
Yeah. So sorry, I was on mute. I apologize there.
All right, no problem.
Yeah. So if the stylists there are paid on a 1099 basis, then they would not be considered to be employees, and they would have to file their own applications. And I have a friend that has a hair salon. That's how she actually works with her people, and so the guidance that I gave her based on what's available out there right now. If they're actually W-2 employees, then of course they could be included in the salon's application.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. So John, what I'd like to do is just switch you, John. How difficult was it for you to fill out the applications? And John, you have about a minute to ask that question before we have to wrap up.
It was not difficult at all to complete the application. As Juan mentioned earlier, you need to have your 941 for last year, your 4 quarterly 941s. Some of you file 944s. I don't. I file 941, so those are readily available online from my payroll service. You need a payroll register. That was readily available online from my payroll service. And it took about, I have 4 companies, it took about 20 minutes to complete the application for each company once we pulled all of our documents together. I commend the SBA. I know it's been challenging given all that's going on, but to have literally millions of companies apply with a 2-week notice, I give my hats off to the SBA and the banking industry for the great job they did in preparing and getting all this ready so that you had portals to apply through. I recommend everyone go to their bank. And if for some reason you don't have a bank, you should find one. Some will accept non-clients, perhaps KeyBank will. But at any rate, you should go, if you have a bank, you should have a bank. You should go to your bank and apply. The 1099 people, as Greg indicated, they begin applying tomorrow. One of my companies have a number of 1099 employees, and we've encouraged all of them to apply tomorrow. And again, you can get information at the SBA's website in order to do that. The process is not difficult at all. And in a nutshell, in summary, the federal government via the SBA and the banking industry that will be paying your payroll benefits, and up to certain limitations, rent and utilities for 8 weeks following that loan period. Basically, they're paying those things for you and forgiving the loan. And so everyone should apply. It is to help you stay in business while we socially distance and self-quarantine and all of the things that have been impacting all of us. So you should apply for sure. And you should comply with the requirements so that you can have those things paid for you. In the interest of time, I will cut it off there.
Well, John, actually, we do have 15 more minutes, but one of the questions that I was going to ask you was why was it important to take advantage of this opportunity? So you answered that, and we appreciate that. Is there anything else that you want to add? Because with regard to your companies that you have, your individual companies, and actually doing the work, is there anything else you want to add that can help us as we go, as we're kind of struggling through the paperwork, and what would be additional advice? Because one of my questions I would ask, and you may can answer this as well, is there a team that you would suggest that as you're going through this, what team did you put together?
My team, it was myself and controllers, my accounting managers, controllers in two of my companies. And the three of us did it for all four of my companies. So it's very easy for us because we use a payroll service. I use Prime Pay on three companies. I use ADP on a fourth. And so the reports that I needed was at those websites. Some of the listeners may use QuickBooks or Peachtree or other software programs to handle their own payroll. So they would have that information as well because they were filing the quarterly reports, and they of course have a payroll register. And you pull the information directly from there and multiply it times the 2.5 to come up with the amount, the total amount. That's certainly what you do on the application for C Corps, S Corps, LLCs. That's what you do there. On the 1099 reports, I'm not 100% sure, but I would imagine that is something very similar. I'm telling you, other than you answering some questions that you will already know the answers to, there are literally 4 or 5 boxes that you have to fill in. The average monthly payroll, 2.5 times that amount in the next box, less the EIDL, which most of our audience don't have an EIDL. So, I mean, it's that simple. The number of employees that you have, and your tax ID number, and I mean, the rest of it is your own personal data, your email, your cell phone number. It is really easy to complete the SBA application, which you can see it if you go to the SBA's website. But now most banks are going to have you complete that information at a portal that they'll have you go to fill it out. But it is as simple as it can possibly be. So go ahead, Debbie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. So I'll come back to you in a minute. So you say it's as simple can be. So there's a question about a banking relationship. For instance, Maureen is asking, and she asked this early on, do I have to meet with a banker to apply for the PPP?
Yes, you have to go through a bank. I will say.
Well, but John,
go ahead, Juan.
Means,
you take it from there.
She means meeting in person with a banker. No, you don't. Most banks have,
no, you don't. I never met with my banker. Right. I did it all online.
That's I think what she was probably.
Okay. Yeah, each individual bank has their own system for intake, and you just need to follow what they're doing.
Okay. So here's another question. And the question from Kimmy is, how much does credit impact getting that approval? Juan, could you answer that, please?
Yeah, no, there is a couple of questions in there that I mean, if you have defaulted on SBA loans or if you are in trouble with the federal government, of course, those are going to be eligibility issues. But other than that, it's 100% guarantee loan. So there's the underwriting piece is very simple. It's just verifying the payroll number, David. So it shouldn't have an impact unless you have an issue with prior government loans or crime or things like that.
Okay. So
Yes,
there's
and
a,
there is a difference between the two too. Obviously, the EIDL is a loan, and there is the forgivable advance portion. So credit is going to come into play when they make that credit decision. Because that one is a loan. It is different necessarily than the PPP program, which is a little different.
okay. Thank you. We have a question from Erica here. She owns a parent education business. She's one person LLC, wants to know if she qualifies for any of the benefit packages that are offered with either of those two opportunities for loans. And we've asked that, but I think we probably need to, if we could address that, because we're having questions come in with the companies that are one person LLCs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. Sorry, Marty. You can absolutely apply for both of these, and you would provide the information with respect to your LLC or yourself to the bank in the same way that other businesses do, and they can help you out for the PPP. Again, for the EIDL loan, you need to do that on the SBA website.
Okay, thank you. Anthony has a company that is new. Currently, he's in the process of starting a medical billing business, and he's also a minority-owned business, and the business is in the hub zone. And he's also a service disabled vet. I'm not sure what his question is, but I think if Anthony, if you would write back in what your question might be. So not sure if he's asking.
I wonder if maybe he's trying to find out if he gets any preferential treatment uh, because it's a minority-owned company or things like that. Under the PPP loan, there is no such a thing, right? So everyone has all the information. Everyone is equal.
And if he's just started his company, there are definite dates that they have to be in operation for each one of the programs. The EIDL, I believe, is January 30th of 2020, and the PPP, they have to have been in operation on 2/15/2020.
Okay, thank you.
And I would simply add that there's really no need for MBE preference, because if you apply timely and you meet the qualifications, you're going to get funds unless the funds run out, because you've waited too late to apply. And the president he is going back to Congress requesting an additional $250 billion to increase that fund, the PPP total available funds, to $600 billion. But there's tremendous number of applications for those funds. So time is of the essence. If you haven't applied for PPP as a company, I'm not speaking of the 1099 independent contractors. If you haven't applied by now, I would strongly suggest that you get your application in and completed by tomorrow. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, and Marty, you would share those same recommendations as well?
Definitely. You want to get in the queue as soon as possible. You want to make sure you're accurate in your information and what you're applying for. But yeah, definitely you want to get in there. I mean, I guess my best thing is you never know what's going to get passed through Congress. You know what's being proposed. And so, yes, and there is we have X amount of money that's allocated for these at this time. And, yeah, we're recommending everybody, if you qualify and you need the assistance, please get out there and apply.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to meet anyone in the audience and they're laying people off or they're shutting down because they ran out of money and they never applied for this lifeline. It's a lifeline. And the one qualifying question they're going to ask you is, do you have uncertainty around your business future as it relates to coronavirus over the next 8 weeks? And if you have uncertainty, then you're eligible to apply. Now, there are other criteria. We've discussed it on this call. You need to meet all of that criteria. However, it is to keep you going and to keep your employees and your business going.
John, thank you so much. We appreciate the emphasis and the clarion call to move us to action. One of the questions that's coming in is, if one owes federal taxes, can you still apply?
There are provisions in there. If you have ever caused a loss to the government, then you wouldn't be able to. But I believe as long as you are on a payment plan or some sort of trying to get your obligations covered, you are fine.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a question here from Elena, and that is, how do you include yourself as an employee? Do you actually have to write yourself a check and pay it out, or is there another way to document and verify the income if all your money was deposited into your business bank account? Juan and anybody else who wants to address that, and we've got about a minute left, please.
Yeah, no, I'll defer to Greg because that's a very technical question, Debbie. So, Greg, maybe.
Yeah,
Greg, I'll weigh in
sure, go
on it
ahead.
as a business owner.
So we have about a minute, please. So
They are looking for payroll. That is a W-2. If you're a 1099 employee, you have to go another route. It is payroll.
Yeah.
That's what the PPP is for businesses. So me, I pay myself a salary. I get distributions also, but those distributions don't count. It was my payroll that was entered, and that was part of the payroll register. Anything I got via a 1099 or some other form, I could not include in that payroll line.
okay.
So for
Let me clarify that.
Go ahead.
There are provisions. It's in the interim rule where if you are 1099 yourselves, taking distributions, K1s, various other ways that you can show, then you may be eligible for that also. I would refer people
Up to
back to the interim rule.
$100,000, right, Martin?
Pardon me?
Martin, isn't that up to $100,000? That's still part of the $100,000 limit.
I
correct?
would have to refer back to the interim rule on that, but some of those costs are actually attributable, and that's where some of the confusion comes in with sole proprietors and single member LLCs and how folks are paying themselves. I would work through your lender to show the documentation you have and see if that applies to the calculation.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. We're about to wrap up. There is a poll out there we'd like for you complete and let us know how we did. Let us know kind of what the direction is, what direction we need to take next. Greg, thank you so much. Juan, thank you. John, Marty, thank you very much. Thank you to IBE. We appreciate it. And also thank you to our audience. Thank you.
Thank
May
you,
you
Debbie.
be blessed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Be safe
everybody.
and healthy. Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
I know.